What you do doesn't need to impact the impact you have.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, excited to have Phil Moeller. Phil, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Todd. Excited to be here.
Yeah, well, appreciate you joining us on the show. A little bit about Phil. He started out working for a Fortune 150 company where he was executive management, leading several global teams, including product management, marketing, software development. And Phil started investing in real estate 2013, and he's now acquired uh, over 430 units. And I'm assuming, because we just talked before the show, we got to add, another 130 on top of that. 40 plus transactions in single family, multifamily, commercial properties. So that's impressive. Phil, why don't you give us a little bit more about your background and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, first of all, you highlighted the corporate stuff. I don't think or talk about that a lot, so I appreciate that. And I learned so much from that. Honestly, I learned so much from that experience and role. So I did. I went to school for engineering, graduated in 2005, and then I was in the corporate world until 2021. So for 16 years, and really the big shift for me was I got into self-development. I think in the 08, 09 timeframe, and I started learning about business, leadership, real estate, and all kinds of different areas of life, honestly, and have just stayed focused on improving myself throughout that time, but also through that got exposed to some different people. And in a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I'm sure all of your listeners have heard about. But when I read that, I thought, okay, there is a different way. This is a complete mindset shift for me financially. And that's what really triggered me to start buying real estate. I actually probably read that in 09, 2010, maybe. Thought about real estate for a while, but didn't pull the trigger until 2013. So just over analysis and other things kind of maybe held me back, but I pulled the trigger. And from there, we were kind of off to the races with some different shifts after that. So, and then you mentioned it, but we did recently we've actually closed on 100 units and then 30 units even last week. So we've probably done 500 units of transactions ourselves if we're counting. And then I think we hold maybe 400 of those. We've divested some of that throughout the process too. So, and
That's
we've just
awesome.
been really, really fortunate and blessed throughout the process and in my career, both professionally and entrepreneurially, uh, just to have good people around us, good team members, and some luck as well.
Yeah. What are like top, maybe two, three lessons, takeaways from the corporate world that you still use today?
Yeah, I like that question. And I don't know that I've talked about this a lot, but the first one I like to tell my team members is, and maybe this is because it's overly important in the corporate world, but you're always building your brand. So you're always building your brand, you're always building your personal brand, whatever role you're in, whatever meeting you're in, whoever you're interacting with, you're building your brand, whether that's intentional or unintentional. People are monitoring you, they're watching you, and you're building it, whether you're building a good brand or not. You're always building your brand. In the corporate world, maybe that becomes too important. I say that because maybe there's politics and promotions and all that stuff that um, become maybe too much of a priority over just getting things done and having an impact. But either way, whether corporate world or in business, you're building so now, how do I think about how I'm building my brand? I'm not, first of all, I don't want to confuse this with I'm building my brand and marketing brand and social media and logo. Of course, yes, that's an element of business strategy, but more importantly, I'm building our brand on how we treat our residents, how we treat our contractors, how we communicate with our investors, just how we do all those things are part of the brand we're building no matter what, not part of our strategy, is just part of doing things right. So that's one lesson, is just building your personal brand. Another lesson I think, and I'll kind of stay on the path of like from the corporate world, you don't need a title to be a leader. And actually, the importance of authenticity and transparency is so important. And I'll tie this to real estate a little bit, but if you are in a job and you think you've earned or want a bigger role or a bigger title in the corporate world, do the work now without the title. And
Yeah. Love that.
this, I tried to do that. I'm not saying I was great at that, but I tried to do that. I tried to contribute above the level of my title and compensation. And maybe those things then followed. I would also say that if you, the authenticity and transparency, as I got further along in my real estate career, and I realized that long term, the corporate world probably wasn't for me because I was an entrepreneur and business owner and I didn't need the company as much. I actually became, I think, a better employee and a better leader at the company because I wasn't trying to play the politics game or prove myself. I was just being authentic and transparent with this is what I think we should do. This is what the business needs. These are the decisions we need to make. I wasn't worried about the repercussions on my career as much. I was just like, this is what we need to do. If we do it or not, I just became more and more transparent and authentic. And near the end of my career, because I was doing that, I was being asked to do more and take on more responsibility. So I think don't be so fearful of raising your hand and saying, boss, you're wrong. We should do that.
Mm.
Do those things because I think your bosses, your managers, the leaders in that company want to hear those perspectives from the people that are at all different levels of the organization.
Yeah. And they respect you. So I can think back to my, um, teaching days. I did construction in the summers, and I took that role very quickly in the construction, and the owner of the company noticed it. The job soups noticed it, and they would ask me for what I thought, and because I would always tell them, like, I think we should do it this way. Well, hey, what about this? I would challenge, like when we're sitting here doing something, I would challenge it because I'm like, it seems like there's a better way, right? And it quickly turns into, as long as I think obviously it could be, there's certain people that might rub them the wrong way, or you maybe are doing it the wrong way. So you
Yeah.
got to be careful, right? That
Yes.
you're not
Agreed.
stepping on toes and not trying to
Agreed.
push yourself around or push other people around. I mean, but people respect you if you do that, and they want to hear from you, and they'll start to ask those questions from you.
Yep.
So I think that's great. This collaborative environment. A lot of people in a position, like you said, like you don't need the title to be a leader. A lot of people think they need that title in order to say something, in order to do
Yep.
something. I want people in my company to challenge us. I mean, look, I'm not right most of the time. It's like
Yeah.
there's probably a better way, right? There's probably a quicker shortcut, all right, that makes more sense that we're not thinking about, and we want people to challenge what we're doing all the time.
And I think so. You asked for three, I'll give you a third one, but I want to stay on your point is how who you talk to. So when I say be transparent, be authentic, who you talk to and how you do that is so incredibly important. And maybe this is more from a leadership perspective in an organization, just focusing on the how. And I was thinking about this morning. I have a little bit of a story around this, but this is a real estate pillars of wealth podcast, and people might be thinking, well, but I'm grinding through my job. Maybe this isn't what I'm excited about. What you do doesn't need to impact the impact you have. So the industry you're in or what you're doing doesn't need to impact, like, don't let that define having a crappy day. You can have
Yeah.
a great day by having an impact on other people. How you do that can be really, really important. So this quick story is we went on a fishing trip with my boys, just me and the two boys down to Florida, spring training and a fishing trip in I think early March. And there was a guy there, the fisherman was there, and he was awesome, high energy. The boys absolutely loved it. So this morning is our kid's last day of school, and our 6-year-old, what do I want to do when I grow up? My wife does a great job of kind of documenting that. He wants to be a fisherman. So I text the guy this morning and I said, hey, check this out. Thought it'd be cool. I still had his text, his phone number from just organizing it, the captain.
Yeah.
I text him a picture of my son and like, look at the impact you're having. And my point was to him, like, first of all, I think a fisherman career or business could be really fun and cool, but there's also probably there's elements of it that are a grind, that are challenging, right? Busy schedules. You're
Yeah.
doing it for other people, not for yourself. So maybe you're not relaxed. So I text him that picture and he said, "Thanks, bro. That's amazing. I needed that more than you know," something like that. And I was like, wow, that's cool. But my point is, no matter if you're a fisherman, a corporate executive, a real estate investor, you can have an impact on other people. He had an impact on my 6-year-old son. There are eyes, and it ties back to the personal brand, but there are eyes watching you all the time, how you're acting, your body language, your performance.
Yeah.
So be aware of that and have a positive impact no matter what you're doing.
Yeah. I love that. You don't know who's watching you. Uh, it's there's more people are watching you more than what you think. And so if you're just doing things the positive way, like you said, and trying to make an impact, try to make a difference, try to do things better, you're you're really creating so much more value than what you realize. It just and you'll never know about it, right? There's so many people that are watching, that are paying attention, that use you as motivation. You don't even know. You don't even have a
Right.
clue. It's the
Right.
people that tell you that you're like, oh wow, that's really cool. But how many people aren't telling you that they
Yes.
heard you say something, they saw you do something, they saw your company act in a certain way, and that motivated them to do the same thing.
I love that. And I think this is like, I'm thinking this as I go, but like this, maybe like, even if you're not sure they're watching, when you're doing things, maybe this young person is watching. Maybe this old person is watching. Maybe this little kid, like maybe they're watching. And if you frame your mind, maybe they're paying attention, maybe they're watching, behave in a way that you would be proud of if they are, because
Yeah.
they are.
We had during COVID, one of friends of mine, he was doing some nice things for his residents, and I was like, "That's really cool. We're going to do something similar." And so we did, and I never told him. I still haven't told him like what I did, and the reason I did it was because of him. But that's the impact, right? It was really simple. Like he just said, "Oh yeah, we're doing this," and I was like, "Oh, that's super cool. We're going to do something
Yep.
cool for our residents as well." And so we did that, and that impacted those residents. And who knows what that did to those residents too? Like some of those residents, some of them were like, "Eh, whatever." What we did is you couldn't find toilet paper, right? And during COVID, so we took and we got like a mass shipment of toilet paper, and then hung toilet paper on everybody's door. Hung a roll of toilet paper on it. So
Yep.
super simple, right?
Yep. I love it.
And you know, very cheap. But I guarantee that affected somebody positively.
Right.
And that wasn't the only thing we did, but that was like one of them sticks out in my head, like just different and
It
something that we like. The idea is like we want to tell people we care, like we get what's going on here, and even if they could find toilet paper, they know because they're hearing there's toilet paper shortages, so they
right.
know the. So it's
It
like
was thoughtful.
it's
It
just
was
the thought,
thoughtful.
right? So something simple, but building the brand, going back to that, right? Same thing.
And I think, this is just really interesting because the last couple of days we hired a new operations manager a couple months ago and we've talking about it. Like we're trying to just step back and think through our impact strategy. So impact strategy being, okay, who do we think about when we build this? Our passive investors, maybe local active investors or listeners, social media followers, residents. And I mean, we had the conversation an hour ago. What is our impact strategy with our residents, independent of marketing and the monetary gain we get from that, which will probably end up benefiting us because they'll stick with
Right.
us or refer to us, but not for that reason because it's the right thing to do. What is our resident impact strategy? And we're thinking about that. So I don't know if we want to take a whole podcast. We can go in whatever direction you want here, but I want to pick your brain after this call or whenever on what are you guys all doing to have a positive impact on your residents and maybe financially, maybe from a faith perspective, maybe from a health perspective. What are the different areas of life we can impact them real subtly just to open a door? How can we do that to have an impact on our residents' lives? Because we have, as owners of real estate, we have access to all these people. So
Yeah.
what are we going to do
Yeah.
in subtle, small ways to have a positive impact on them because of the access we have?
I love that. And it's easy to ignore that, right? Because these are your residents and they pay you rent. And I think there's a lot of great owners out there right now. I think right now, and it's hard because I feel like it's overplayed by the media that there's terrible landlords, but I think right now we are in an era where there's the best landlords we've ever had. The old way of owning buildings was you've got the landlord that's just this, you just think of like this jerk owning the building. They don't care about their tenants. These are these are poor people that live in your building and forget that, just pay me your rent and I'll repair stuff if I want to.
Yep.
Right. I just, that's not the way to do business anymore. And I don't, probably never was. Right. but, but that's the people that are winning right now. And that's the impact strategy you're talking about. And I agree. Like you said something and you said it quickly, and I want to make sure we hit on that. But you said you're thinking about how you're impacting the residents, and that's gonna. You said something about that being actually probably more profitable in the end. Is that?
It
Did I
probably
hear it
will
right?
be
Yeah.
because I mean, if you do the right thing. So I'll give an example. Uh, Last week we took over this property. We had one resident that we didn't have a key for that unit. So we knocked on the door, hey, can we get a copy of the key? Went, made a copy, brought back cupcakes. Little old lady, she was ecstatic about it. I don't know that that's going to change a life or anything, but we're building our brand as
Yeah.
as an ownership group and as a management company, and
Yeah.
that will get us a referral. I don't want to say our renewals and our rent increase strategy is because of the things we do. I don't want to
Yeah.
connect them and do it for money, but we'll have the same financial and business strategy, but we just also add this impact strategy for residents to that, and it'll end up making the business better. The other thing about the separate, so I want to also hit on the separation of
Mm.
good and bad landlords, right? Is I agree with you that there are better landlords because of self-development and podcasts like yours or Bigger Pockets or others. It is challenging and elevating the status of owning apartments and how you treat your resident base. But there's still bad landlords. But over
Yes.
time,
Yes.
those people will get weeded out and fall to the bottom and or be challenged. A rising tide rises all ships, right? So over time, the average will continue to elevate, and the weaker ones, they can't they won't get they just won't be profitable if they're not, or they'll have maintenance, they'll have other issues if they don't do the right things. And maybe they'll get by, I'm sure some will, of course.
Yeah.
But either way, if we do the right thing, we're challenging the competition to do the right thing as well. So it helps everybody.
Yeah. And there's always going to be some of those, but let's have it be the 80-20 rule, or maybe even better yet, the 90-10 rule. And it's on the positive side, right? So instead of 80% of landlords being jerks and people that you just don't want to deal with, it's the opposite. 80% are amazing, 20%. And let's try to make that,
And
95-5, right?
let's make it our responsibility
Yeah.
not to make more money, but let's make it our responsibility to do the right thing and treat people the right way.
Yeah.
Another guy that I've talked to, like his slogan is, we want to give our residents the feeling of home, right? How do we do that
Yeah.
and make them feel like, hey, this is their home, they're comfortable. They might not have people to talk. Like, I don't want to say we're doing an amazing job and all. Like, we have work to do, we have improvements to make, but
Yep.
I think it's our responsibility to think about this and do the right thing for them. And again, separate it from the financials. Like, we have to be profitable. We have to run a business. It's not a charity. But over time, if you do the right things, you're elevating it, a house, a building, a community, possibly. So I think we should take the responsibility to do these things.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I like how you're really talking about separating it, right? Keeping it. Look, let's talk about our impact strategy without thinking about the financials. Let's talk about that without thinking about, is that going to get us? Is that going to get us more rent? Is that going to, keep residents there longer? No, let's just talk about, is this the right thing to do? Are we making the impact? I love that. You know, my goal is to make this be a place that everybody is proud of to bring their family to. Like, if you have an apartment building and somebody who lives in your apartment building, they should be excited, proud to bring their friends and family to their apartment complex and not be embarrassed, right?
Yes.
If you're bringing a date home I don't want to say, hey, you can't come to my place. I can't show you my place. Like, we got to go to yours because mine is so
Right.
embarrassing. Right.
Yep.
Oh, I want to say, mom, dad, come on over for some dinner tonight.
Yep. And I'll
That's
take
what I
this. I
want.
mean, I'll give an example. We had a property that we took over. I think it's probably been 5 years now almost. And we did major capital improvements, but we just provided good. So major renovation of the property, turned it around. Probably
Yep.
a we didn't know it at the time when we bought it, but probably a D class property, quite frankly, that we elevated to, maybe a C, let's call it a C plus property now. And that property is now managed by a different company. So the service isn't the same as what it was. So even though we fixed it up and we raised rents right over time,
Yeah.
no one now is complaining about the higher rents they're paying. They want the service.
Yep.
That's what they want. That's
Yep.
what people just want to feel respected, feel loved, feel served. And if you give that, the business plan will work itself out.
Yeah. The number one reason why residents leave is because um, of repair maintenance issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is because you're not paying attention to the resident's needs, right? When a resident says, I've got this issue going on, are you fixing that? And better yet, are you being proactive about it so they don't even have to complain about it? That's
Right.
the goal for us, is like, we want to try to make sure we're serving. You're never going to catch everything, right? But we want to get the maintenance before they complain about us, about it being an issue. So
Yeah.
we don't want them to say, hey, I've got this maintenance issue. We want to be able to have that maintenance issue taken care of. We want to make sure our maintenance people are being proactive, are walking units and trying to fix things and making sure we're on regular schedules and things like that. So that's not a problem. So we don't have
Right.
complaints.
Yep. 100%. We talk about it, but we get people in with great, we show the unit well, CapEx and good marketing. We keep people with good maintenance and communication. It's really as simple as that. It doesn't I mean, if you have a high, like if your renewal rate is really low, you're not retaining people, there's probably maintenance responsiveness or communication issues or something else. It's
Yep.
not because the dollar amount of the renewal. It's because
Yep.
something else. And that takes, when you acquire a property, we're dealing with this right now, it takes time to build that, right?
It
Like
does.
we haven't proven ourselves in the first month that we're phenomenal. I think we've proven to the people that have had issues or concerns or questions, and through our interactions we've had, that we're doing a good job, but we haven't had interactions with every single new resident from the property we bought recently, right? So we've had interactions with them, but not a more in-depth one where we've really been able to prove ourselves. So that also just takes time.
Yeah. Love that. You mentioned before we got on, you closed on the 100 unit building, and I think that was a month ago. Was that correct?
Yeah, right around a month and a half.
And you said something I thought was worth talking about. You said that we're excited about it. We're already working on it. The team is ready to go. How do you that's really tough to do. It's really tough to buy a property and start implementing your business strategy right away. There's pain points there. It just seems inevitable that things go the wrong way right away, right? You're like, crap, I thought everything was going to go perfect, and then we didn't execute the business plan immediately, and we struggle out of the gates. How do you avoid that? What are you doing to make sure that you guys aren't struggling out of the gates? And maybe there's still some struggles, right? But that you can be productive immediately.
So maybe it sounded way better than what the
Oh,
reality is.
come
So
on. Now
first
you're
of
going to
all,
disappoint me. I thought you guys were
uh,
amazing.
um, let me simplify the answer to what we're doing right,
Yeah.
people and team, and generally, and for the most part, our
Are you
systems.
guys self-managing?
We're self-managing this.
Yeah.
Yes. So operations manager, executive assistant slash manager, like helps with the back end support stuff. So team members is the what we're doing right now. The challenges that came up through our due diligence, 8 vacant, realized there was four or five notices to vacate upon takeover. So our vacancy instead of 8% was like 13% or something like that.
Yep.
Um, maintenance issues came up that we weren't expecting. Just what, some 4-letter word happens. Like it happens, and almost every time we've taken over a property, there are surprises. So just expect the unexpected. And we talk about like,
Yeah.
we just need to expect the unexpected. So
Yeah.
our call system for this portfolio was a bigger property that we've taken on ourselves than the others. Some of our stuff is third party managed. So like our incoming call system was chaos for the first week, like total. So every single week we just made big progress on this new acquisition. And now we're in a pretty good stable spot. But now we're going through our, CapEx. Like we have some breathing room to do CapEx. Our renewal strategy, we started a month later than we planned because we had all this extra vacancy. So we had to make
Yep.
plenty of adjustments, but we're making those and doing well with those, I think, because we have the right team members and thought process, not because we had it all figured out before we started, right? This was
Yeah.
another step to a bigger property that we're self-managing. And there's already been a ton of lessons in the first 40 days or so. Now, the 30 unit that we closed last week, because we just went through that a month ago on a larger property, we bought a smaller one, and that one it's just more stable right now. And the renewal, like I'd say not as strategic, doesn't need to be as much of a focus. That one is running relatively smoothly, but there's also things that come up. There's a common area, and hey, occasionally there's people that come in and sleep here during the winter in our hallways. Okay, safety and security out of the gate. We're gonna
Yeah.
put locks on, and we're gonna add lighting to the parking lot. It's in a good area, but it's just convenient from
Yeah.
an
Super
area where
easy.
people might be hanging out.
Yep.
So there's always headaches, but I think the key to going into new things is trying to frame your mindset that expect the unexpected, expect challenges, but also know that you don't create every single challenge in your head before it happens. Because first of all, you're going to create a ton of stress, and you're probably going to think about the wrong challenges. I'm not saying don't plan, but don't stress yourself out over every single challenge that might happen.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing. The second thing is when they happen or when you're leading up to your closing, realize that you have time on your side to solve these problems and figure things out. When we closed our first 16 unit 5 or 6 years ago that we self-managed, the amount of stress and anxiety I had around closing that deal because of the uncertainties and just thinking we had to have everything solved the minute we closed, it was ridiculous what I did to myself. This 30 unit was completely opposite. It's like, we've done this before. We'll figure it out. So there's a balance of stretching yourself and trying new things and putting yourself in those situations, but just building your mindset around how to manage these new situations, I think is so important.
Yeah. It, there's always going to be something unexpected, but you can never predict what it's going to be. And if you try to, like you said, you're just going to be wrong. And so you just have to understand that there's going to be unexpected things that are going to happen, and you have to be prepared for that. And you have to be willing to take it on and make sure your team is too. And I love that you talked about your team, and that's how you guys are successful is you've got a team that's ready to go and hit those challenges head on. Um, you've got time to fix it. The thing that we always say is, look, I mean, so first of all, make sure you have enough cash. I mean, if you have enough cash in
Yes.
the bank, right, you can handle some of these headaches that are going to happen. Like just make sure you have plenty of reserves.
Yep.
Uh, every property we buy, we know that our income, our gross income collected is going to be less than it was the month before for the next several months after we close on the deal. It's going
Yes.
to take
Yep.
about 3, maybe 5 months to get it back to where it used to be. Now, every deal is different. Some deals we're there right away, right? But other deals, it takes that long. And then our expenses, almost every time, probably every time, our expenses go up from the day we close. When that owner says it was costing them $100,000 a month, it all of a sudden it's costing us $115,000 a month for the next couple months because we have the repairs and maintenance stuff that's been, kind of ignored and
Yep.
pushed under the rug. And there's just always some things that you need to take care of right away. And it doesn't matter. And it's going to be different every time, right? You just have to be ready for it. So I love that.
The first 3 to 6 months are 100% the transitional period, both on income and expenses.
Yep.
So, and I'll say that the whole cash and cash reserves and CapEx on our first larger multifamily deal we did. I think we bought a 70 unit in 2000, I want to say 17. We didn't properly fund it it was just me and another guy, two partners, 50-50. We didn't properly fund it for CapEx.
Yep.
So we're we're just getting by break even on cash flow at that time, in that time period. We didn't distribute for, I don't know, a couple of years. And everything that we quote cash flowed, we had to put back into CapEx and do that. But the result of that, it worked out great. But the result was our timeline to get CapEx done was way slower than what it could have been.
Yep.
We did, we weren't funded for it all. So, if we wanted to do new windows, we did that in year 4 versus year 1. Or if we had to do new roofs, we did 1 or 2 a year versus getting them all done out of the gate. So just having CapEx planned properly, and in addition to CapEx plan, the appropriate amount of cash reserves. So when your income and expenses don't come in exactly to plan, you're prepared for it. Because I guarantee you, this is a corporate world, and now one guarantee on every single one of my business plans that I've had is they've been wrong, one way or the other. Every single one of them has been wrong. You're going to get numbers wrong, but be prepared for it.
Yeah, pro forma is an educated guess, but you can't predict the future, and your hope is that it's wrong the correct way, right? That you under promised, over delivered, but it doesn't happen that way every single time. There's expenses that come up. I mean, my first property too, same or large property, same type of thing. I did schedule renovations and put that aside, but I didn't put enough reserves aside up front. And so that was the same type of thing, scraping by, trying to figure out how do we pay for the roof that just we didn't expect to have to replace, but we got to replace it. Like, you can't just let that thing leak into people's units, right? Got to replace it. So how do we pay for that? How do we stretch, the dollar? So we've talked about mistakes, but what's a mistake that you've made, and how can our listeners learn from it?
So I think that the cash and CapEx one is a good one, but I would say I'll go back to when I left my job, maybe two mistakes or things that I question and use those as maybe things I talk about. Because I think, first of all, I think all of us I hear this on the Ed Milet podcast, but we are best suited to help train and teach our former selves. So I think the mistakes that I have, I can help other people with. So the two lessons learned from leaving my job is one, and I'm going to write them down so to make sure, but is overthinking and overanalyzing everything. So I built this cash flow forecast for 3 years before I quit my job that went out to 90. And I did all this sensitivity of what if the stock market goes up by this much, or real estate appreciates by this much, or what if my cash flow or interest rates or all this stuff. And I created every darn issue in my head that I could imagine. And it just created more stress and anxiety than was necessary. So, I mean, it didn't, what did that cost me? It probably made me leave a little bit later, but there was some strategic timing and options, stock and other stuff that was tied to when I left. So that's one. But the second one then is the understanding of our relationship with time. And I'll tie it to that specific W-2 exit. I created all these issues in my head, and my frame of time at that point in time was I have about 10, 15 hours a week to work on real estate. So in the last 2 years, how much have I done with 10 to 15 hours? But when I quit, my next 12 months, my next year, I had 50, 60 hours, whatever I needed on real estate. So I just 4 or 5x'd how much time I spend on it. In addition, my level of focus on that item was significantly higher because I was really focused on my job and my career, even though I was trying to build real estate, like I was excited about it.
Yep.
I was so I basically had 4 to 5x the amount of time and focus for the first year after I quit. And that continued after I left my job versus before. So just making sure, like, if I could tell myself, hey, you have time to figure these things out. You're going to, like, if you buy new apartments or if you don't know for sure where every single penny of cash flow is going to come from, you still have time to figure this out.
Mm,
You have time on your side. And we had single family houses at that time. So if the cash flow wasn't perfect that I forecasted, I could use a single family house, divest it, maybe get 30, 40, $50,000 of equity out of it. Okay, I just bought myself 6 more months, right? And I could have
yep.
been way more aggressive with that, if I understood then what I understand now. But I would say the two major lessons is don't overthink and create a bunch of issues in your head. And second, when you shift, no matter what you're doing, like your relationship with time and focus, I think just making sure that that's understood and in how important it is.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. What's so where's the company going? What's your plan and what are you seeing right now in the market? What are you excited about?
Yeah. So where the company is going first, we just closed these two deals. I'm really excited about them. We're really focused on just
Did you
taking our
syndicate those deals?
we did one and then the other one just a real small group.
Okay.
Um the so where we're focused is really operational focus and taking what I think are really good systems and processes and a really great team and making it a really great making building really great systems and processes to run with our great team. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. Um, and then building, getting more structured on our acquisitions funnel and our acquisitions process. We have a lot of good relationships and off market opportunities, but dialing that in and building the system around that more is what we're really focused on. And I would say the third thing and the most impactful thing is building out. So we have, I'll go on podcasts or social media or newsletter. There's different residents. There's different ways we are connected with people. So we have this platform based on real estate,
Mhm.
but for me, it's not about real estate. It's about using real estate as the marketing vehicle to connect to people to have an impact in other ways.
Love
So
that.
we're thinking about our impact strategy and how we leverage this platform we have to have an impact on all these people that we are connected with in different ways. We're connected to passive investors or active investors or residents. Those are very different folks
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
maybe need a different message. But if we can say, hey, let's talk about real estate or even for residents, personal finance, but now we have their attention, how else can we have an impact? So before I with these closings can be a lot of work, as you know, and our team is really doing a great job. So that's created some free space for me. Before we go in and start to just get busy with all this stuff, I want to be really strategic about building our impact strategy. How do we want to impact people? And then what vehicles are we using to get to those people to have that impact? So and that is what gets me most excited. And I don't want to create all this other busyness without that being at the core of what we do.
Yeah. I love that. And I you're motivating me right now to look through our business and go, where are we making impact? Where are we missing on the impact? Because that's a big part of my goals is how much impact are we making, but it's easy to get lost in the numbers. It's easy to get lost in the day to day. It's all the minutia that happens. It's easy to get lost in that and kind of forget about the impact. So I think it's something you need to be really intentional about, not just once, not just say this is what we're going to do and how we're going to create impact, but constantly thinking about, are we actually creating this impact that we set up to be? It's cute to say we're going to impact our residents and here's how we're going to do that, but then have you actually done it? Are you doing it? And where are you falling short? Right? How, and then, okay, we're falling short in this area. Okay, how do we improve that? How do we make sure we're implementing things? And then how do we tweak? Well, we are actually doing that's working, but how can we make it even more impactful? I think that's where we're missing. And I'm speaking myself personally and my company is we're missing on the actual implementation of the impact. We have the ideas, we want to do it, and we do some things, but I think the actual implementation and truly coming back to it and going, are we doing what we set out to do?
And first of all, this is why I love having these conversations, because we don't have this figured out.
Yeah.
The reason we're talking about this is because I'm excited to figure it out, but I haven't figured it out, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that a lot of other people will start to think about this and figure it out in their own way. But we're still business people, right? We're entrepreneurs and we're business people. So it is easy for us to go to how to run a business, how to make money. Like that's just our default and we're comfortable. And
Yep.
let's go there because we've done it before. We know we can do it again. And I was actually having this conversation with someone else this morning, but there's this conflict. Let me say that differently. We frame in our mind this conflict between money and impact,
Yeah.
and we move towards money and
Yeah.
not impact. What we need to change and what I'm working on is, first of all, just focus on the impact. Guaranteed money will follow if you want it to, or if you're a business person, like that'll just follow. But if you focus on the impact and you think about that first, the fulfillment from that is way better than, any financial return, but the financial return will probably also come.
Mm. Yeah.
So I don't have it
Love it.
figured out. I don't have it solved, but I'm doing a lot of thinking about this right now and that conflict and how do I stay focused and get clear on what is the impact strategy that we're going to have with these different, tentacles and connections to all these people.
I mean, that's the right steps, right? You got to start thinking about it, making sure it's going to become a part of the business versus, we're just going to run the business.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Phil, couple last questions before we wrap up. What's a favorite book you can recommend to our listeners?
Um, Man, there's a lot of good ones. I would say, I was just The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is one that I was recently just thinking about. It's a little bit just different, but it's all about being present and in the moment. We were recently on a trip in Cabo San Lucas, and we did this. If anyone ever goes there, by the way, we climbed this little summit called Mount Salmore. It's a private summit, but the owner of that was from the Baja Peninsula, their culture, and he said like the only thing we have is the present moment. And Eckhart Tolle wrote a whole book on that, and it's a really good book. So that
Hmm.
comes to mind. I mean, Man's Search for Meaning is a phenomenal book. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry is faith-based, but a phenomenal book if you haven't read that. You know, I'm constantly trying to read and improve in different areas of life. So there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I have them on my shelves too, but those are some that are kind of present, if you will.
Love it. Love it. All right. Last question. What are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
Yeah, so I'm toying with this um framework. So I think I'm gonna give you 5 if that's not against the rules. And if it is, you just have to cut me off after 3. But
I'll
um
decide. Let's get going here.
okay.
I'll see.
But I think based on prior conversations, these might resonate with you. So the purpose matrix is what I'm think of a matrix and the purpose matrix. And on the top, you have different areas of life. Okay. Faith, family, finance, fitness, whatever it might be for you. And then on the left side, it's PEACE is the acronym, PEACE. So the first one is purpose. What is your purpose, vision, why? And you can think about that. And in my opinion, think about that from a faith perspective and then from a career perspective, right? So then your career purpose should align with your faith purpose, or your health purpose should align with your faith purpose. So the first one is purpose. The second one is education. You need to surround yourself with good content, what you follow, what you read, what the podcasts you listen to. So incredibly important. The third one, I think we talked about this in the past, is association. And in my opinion, probably the most undervalued or underestimated one, but you are becoming who you associate with. So when I talked about earlier building your personal brand, if the 4 people you hang out with most you don't think they have a personal brand, your brand is becoming more in alignment with their brand every single day. So change who you hang out with and be intentional about your associations and who you hang out with. So that was number 3. The fourth is take courageous action. So courageous action is important because courage, a lot like, why don't we take action? Because we don't believe in ourselves. We're worried about what other people think. So be courageous in the actions you take. And finally, the E in peace is it be an example to others. Do things the right way and be a positive example, be a leader. So those are my five that's my framework of, okay, if I live out the purpose matrix and use peace, like if I do those things within that area of life, I think I'll actually be at peace with what I've done because I've defined my purpose. I've educated myself. I've taken courageous action and I've led by example. So if I do those things, I think I'm at peace with the effort I put into that pillar of life, if you will.
Love it. Love it. Phil, look, man, this has been great. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you talking us through your corporate lessons you've learned, the impact strategy, what you're trying to do with your residents and with everybody you're impacting, which is awesome. Really appreciate that. Mistakes you've made and then of course your pillars. So really appreciate everything, Phil. And thanks for coming on the show. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Social LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn. Just Phil Moeller on LinkedIn is great. Moeller Real Estate on LinkedIn or Facebook. Our website is www.moeller, MOELLER, so MoellerRE.com. If someone wants to reach out, Phil@MoellerRE.com, they can email me as well. So
Awesome. Awesome. Again, Phil, really appreciate it. You have a fantastic rest of the day.
thanks, Todd. Really, really appreciate it and enjoyed our conversation.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.